Hello, and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham, coming to you from the heart of the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We'll get you a roundup of stories from across the world, but first, let's take a look at the headlines. Tehran says it won't hesitate to respond to U.S. attacks on its territory after Washington declined to rule out strikes on Iran and vowed retaliation against Iran-backed groups. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development raises 2024 World Economic Growth forecast. It also warns of risk due to Middle East conflicts amid attacks in the Red Sea. Australian writer Tang Hengjun has been given a suspended death sentence by a Chinese court, which may be commuted to life imprisonment. Hengjun was arrested for spying. Mobile internet temporarily cut off in Senegal as protest clashes over President Macky Sall's postponement of presidential elections. The Singapore government will review the terms of its Formula One Grand Prix after its sacked transport minister was charged with corruption. We begin with the latest from the Middle East, where tensions continue to simmer. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Saudi Arabia. He will also head to Egypt, Qatar, and, of course, Israel and the West Bank. The talks will focus on the Gaza hostage crisis and a ceasefire, which was later extended, as Israel continues to escalate its offensive against Hamas. According to reports, a ceasefire proposal under discussion would pause fighting for an initial 6 weeks, as Hamas frees hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners. In November of last year, Israel and Hamas agreed to a 4-day ceasefire, which was extended to a week, a breakthrough that facilitated the release of dozens of hostages. This is Blinken's 5th visit to the region since October of last year, when the conflict began. The latest visit comes as the U.S. launched strikes against 85 Iran-linked targets in Iraq and Syria. It marked the first time the U.S. has carried out strikes in both countries simultaneously. Washington says it hit command and control centers, intelligence centers, rocket missile and drone storage facilities of Iran-backed militias. The United States and Britain also unleashed attacks against 36 Houthi targets in Yemen. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said the strikes were in self-defense.
Well, since the last set of strikes, we've seen the Houthis continue to attack shipping in the Red Sea. That's obviously unacceptable. It's illegal. It puts innocent people's lives at risk and has economic consequences. Now, that includes attacks, by the way, on British-linked vessels, and that's why we've acted, again, in self-defense, in a proportionate way, and together with our allies. I've been clear that I won't hesitate to protect British lives, British interests, and our diplomatic efforts are focused on bringing de-escalation and stability back to the region.
This is the second wave of assaults aimed at disabling the Iran-backed group and the latest escalation in the conflict that is spreading across the Middle East. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said U.S. strikes on Iran-backed militias were just the beginning of its response. Sullivan also refused to rule out strikes on Iranian soil.
Of our response. There will be more steps. Some of those steps will be seen, some may not be seen, but there will be more action taken to respond to the tragic death of the 3 brave U.S. service members. And we cannot rule out that there will be further attacks from Iranian-backed militias in Iraq and Syria or from the Houthis. We have to be clear-eyed about that. And the president, in being clear-eyed about that, has told his military commanders that they need to be positioned to respond to further attacks as well. And I would just say, from the perspective of Tehran, if they chose to respond directly to the United States, they would be met with a swift and forceful response from us.
Washington strikes are in retaliation for the killing of 3 U.S. soldiers in a drone attack at a U.S. base in Jordan last week. Iran has warned the United States against any move against its ship Bayshad, which is stationed in the Red Sea. Washington suspects the Iranian-flagged ship of providing surveillance information to help direct Houthi attacks on ships in the Red Sea. And the latest, telecom firms linked to the UN-recognized government in Yemen said they fear Houthi rebels are planning to sabotage a network of submarine cables in the Red Sea. These cables are critical to the functioning of the internet in the West and the transmission of financial data. The Red Sea carries about 17% of the world's internet traffic along fiber pipes. While the Israeli-Hamas war rages, the largest strategic conflict in the Middle East pits Iran against the United States. Washington is trying to press Tehran into reining in its proxies, and Tehran is aiding those forces to put pressure on the U.S. to leave the region. But neither side, the United States nor Iran, wants a direct conflict. From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.